Let's wait for 2 to 3 minutes and then we will start, okay? So today we will develop the services which are already, to be developed for the front end. So we are going to get the list of restaurants, right? So we need to send the same data back to the Angular application in order to retrieve the records, okay? Um, okay, I think most of the people have joined, right? So probably we can, I'll just start sharing my screen. Can you all see my screen? Could you please confirm? Thank you. Okay, so these are the things that we have developed till now, right? So probably I will just open this GitHub folder project. Yeah. So here, I just wanted to work on this restaurant service first. So what are all the things that we need to develop from our side? So first of all, let me create the API required to get all the restaurants. And also I have this, let me go to this one. So I have one file with me. Tech learnings, React. And here is, so this is the rest.json file. I just wanted to copy that in the resources, rest.json, or we can also call it as restaurants. Okay. So now, so these are the list of restaurants that we need to insert into databases. Okay. So we'll see that later, but right now we just have to add some things over here. So first of all, I need the JPA dependency, which is already there, and one more thing, MySQL. Okay. So I just wanted to develop two entities. First of all, the first one is um, I'll just create a package, entities. And inside this, I just wanted to create a restaurant entity. So right now, if you see our Angular application, right now we are getting all the restaurants and showing it on the UI from a file, right? We need to show that from the database. Okay. So we'll see that all that steps into one single place. So I'll just use Jakarta persistence entity so that this will be marked as for database connectivity to the persistence context. And then at the rate table, I just wanted to give the name as um, restaurants. So already there is a table called restaurants. So I just wanted to add restaurants batch two, right? Yeah. So you are batch two, right? So that's the reason I have given like this. And I just wanted to use all the Lombok related annotations, ALLUX, NOAX, and at the rate builder. Okay. And here I just wanted to use restaurant ID, private integer restaurant ID, at the rate ID from Jakarta.persistence, at the rate generated value, strategy, generation type dot identity I will use. So do you know which one to use, auto or identity? Anyone knows about it, first of all? There are so many things to be observed, auto and identity. Anyone knows the difference between them? Anyone? Okay, if not, we will see it together. Okay, don't worry. So next thing, private string restaurant name, and it has to be annotated with at the right column. So we need to give column names importantly, because what happens is if you are not going to give the names to the columns, so sometimes some column values will go to some other column values. Okay, we need to map this restaurant to the restaurant underscore name or restaurant underscore ID, whatever. Restaurant underscore name. So whatever the data that we are going to set to this property, that property value will go to this restaurant name. Otherwise, what will happen? Let's say I'm just setting up the rating. Okay, rating for the restaurant. Now here, if you don't give the columns, let's say if I just wanted to set the rating, okay. So sometimes this rating value will go into the restaurant column value because we have not mentioned it as column. We have not mapped the properties to the columns of the database tables, right? So we need to give column name so that this property, whatever the value that we are going to set, that has to map to this particular column in the database table. If you're not going to give it, you'll see the consequences, right? Without giving the column names. Okay. So we need to give the column name at any cost. And for this, why I have not given column name? Because by default, this is a primary key, right? So even it's a best practice to give column name as well. But if we are going to give all the properties a column mapping, then probably this is not required. This is the only thing which is pending, and the respective property value will go to this restaurant ID column itself. Okay, but it's a best practice to declare it as at the red column a restaurant underscore ID. Okay, and then what I need to do? So here we can actually give rating private string image URL. I can give the image URL and at the red column name. So what we can give? So restaurant underscore image underscore URL. Okay, and then private string location, and then probably we can have those are the only things, right? First, we can see the restaurant name, then the rating, right? We don't need the delivery time 25 to 30 minutes, something like that. And then we need a restaurant image URL. And then this is what I was talking about. So if you just go to this restaurants list, the restaurant name, image is there, rating is there, menu types are there, and also the location of the restaurant. Okay, so this is what we need to concentrate on. And here, I can simply go to this one column. And then here, I just wanted to give this as a location. And after this, I just have to maintain. So if you just see it over here, right? Here it has a menu types. So this is something called a collection of strings, right? Probably what I can do, I will just use list of string, and I will just mention it as menu types. And then, so I need to give a name for this one, menu underscore type, but is this only enough for the collection of strings? So there is something called when we are using collections, right? So like list, this string is an internal Java class. This is not our custom class, right? So we need to use at the rate element collection, and then followed by we need to give the table name also. Okay, so collection table will be there, and here in this we can give the name of the table, restaurant underscore entity underscore menu underscore types. This is enough. And we need to use something called join columns. And here we need to use at the rate join column. That's it. And we need to use something called the join column name. Okay, so here, let's say if you are going to use this at the rate join column, we need to join the restaurant ID. Okay, so that's the reason we need to give the name of the restaurant ID. That's it. Okay, so this will be fine. And that's all. And the next thing is we need to develop one more entity, which is something called restaurant menu entity. Because every restaurant has a menu, right? So restaurant menu entity. Okay. So this, what are all the fields are required? So menus will have, the menu item name, the description, the image, menu type, only one menu type, because Restaurant contains list of menu type, but if you have a menu, then probably we are going to mention the menu type only for that. Okay, let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I just click on this restaurant, so here it has something called a menu item name, the price, and the menu item image. And here, basically, it is a McBreakfast. And if you just go to this is a sandwich, right? Everything will be there. And here we don't mention the menu type, but it's always good to mention the category. Okay, for that we need that. So here, what we are going to do? So uh, private. So declare the basic annotations at the rate entity. And what will be the relationships? One restaurant can have many menus, right? So it's something called one to many relationship. Okay, so that's what we just have to look into that, right? So then we do have something called table name equal to a restaurant underscore menus. Okay, and then probably we do have a data annotation which will generate the setters, getters, toString, equals, and hash code. Okay. Then probably we do have to use all args constructor, no args constructor, and then at the rate builder. Okay. Enough. And we can actually go with declaring the current menu ID at the rate ID at the rate generated value. We can actually use the strategy generation type dot identity, and at the rate column name for this one is something called menu underscore ID. That will be fine for me. Private string menu item at the rate column. You can actually give the name. Okay. I just wanted to mention this as item name. Okay. Next, private. And then we do have a description, right? For that menu. So description at the rate column. Description. Private. Menu item image URL. And here we can actually give it as menu underscore image underscore URL. Next, after this, we can have a menu type. It's a simple category. The menu falls under which category. So we can actually call it as a menu type. Okay. And then we have something called private level price. Price. Okay. So we are done with all the kind of things. Now, we need to map this restaurant entity to this restaurant menu entity, right? How we can actually declare that? Any idea? So first of all, my question to everyone is, so let's say if you have this restaurant entity and you do have a restaurant entity and you do have a menu entity. So the relationship between each of them is one restaurant can have many menu items, right? So in the same way, I just wanted to ask you one simple question. So can we use unidirectional approach or bidirectional approach? Do you know what is a unidirectional approach and bidirectional approach in JPM mappings? Anyone knows about it? Hmm? Guys, I'm asking you the question. Anyone knows about unidirectional or bidirectional? Or please raise your hand. Guys, I cannot call you this many times. You know my position, right? Okay. See, let me explain that feature as well to everyone. Okay. So right now, if you have a restaurant and menus, okay, the relationship between these two, okay, it's a one to many. Okay, let me tell you one simple use case for this. Okay, so if I just wanted to get a restaurant, right? So I just wanted to get the complete menus also because restaurant has to be, wrapping the menus as a dependency inside the restaurant entity, right? So what we can do, we can actually define list of menus inside the restaurant entity class, right? And then we can have a relationship. Let's say if I just wanted to get a menu, I just wanted to identify this menu belongs to which restaurant. Do I have to do that? So if we don't want to do that, but right now in our case, we don't want to do that. So unidirectional means, okay, unidirectional means if you get a restaurant, you will also get menus. Bidirectional, and but if you if you have menus, then we will not be getting restaurant info. In the bidirectional, understood? For now, I don't have to use this because I just wanted to get a restaurant, and based on that, I just wanted menus. That's it. Okay. So that's the simple use case. So we need to use unidirectional approach. So for bidirectional approach, we use something called mapped by attribute. You can have a look into that. Okay. But right now we are just going with unidirectional because that is not required for our UI. So let me explain you about that simple one. I just wanted to take private list of restaurant menu entity. I just wanted to call it as menus. And what I need to do, so I need to use one to many. So the meaning of this one is one restaurant can have many restaurant menu entities. Got it? So that's the relationship. And to this, we need to mention some attributes. Cascade. The first one is a cascade. Okay, so I will just explain you what is this cascade about. So whenever you have the restaurant entity along with this list of menus, do you want to save the restaurant entity inside the restaurants table along with this data? It will happen, but we just have to save the menus also in the respective restaurant menus table. Okay, so that's the meaning of cascade type. So we do have so many types. So there is something called persist. If I just save restaurant information in restaurants table, do you have to save the restaurant menus also in the respective restaurant menus table? Yes, we can use this one. If I just wanted to merge, let's say right now restaurant entity is getting updated. Okay, so whenever we do an update with the restaurant entity, do you want to merge it? That means what do you mean by merge? Because merge is basically used whenever you have a detached entity. Anyone knows about detached entity? So detached entity, the meaning of detached entity is it's not having any relationship between the database. Okay. So we need to merge it. So when we use persist, so let's say if I just get a restaurant from the database, it actually is associated with the persistence context. Okay, so I don't know how many people of you are aware of JPA. Can you just tell me that so that I will be able to raise some points from my side also? Giridhar? Okay, let me ask you, Giridhar. Hey, Giridhar. Giridhar, are you there? Just unmute again. Yeah. Hi, Giridhar.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Tell me.
Yes.
So you were asking that we need to use bidirectional. May I know the reason for that?
Uh, yeah, means I thought that just after selecting the means menu also just we need to get this item is served by these items. I thought like that way, so
No,
that's why I suggested
let me tell you the
directional.
uses. Okay. So here, if I just go to the go back, right now you can see the list of restaurants, right? Here, correct? These are list of restaurants. Correct. Giridhar, you can open up, Giridhar, no problem. Okay. So here you can see the list of
Uh,
restaurants, correct?
no, yes, not a problem, sir. I'm in room, right? So that's why I unmuted, sir.
No problem. Okay. So now if I just click on this restaurant, I need to get the respective menus of this restaurant. Okay. But
Mm,
if I just click on this menu, do I have to get a restaurant information? Not needed. Correct?
yes, sir. Mm.
Right. So that's the reason
Okay.
we need to maintain the unidirectional approach. Restaurant can depend on menus, but restaurant menu entity does not have to depend on restaurant entity. That is not needed. Okay. If restaurant menu entity also depends on, so we use something called like this. The restaurant entity,
Entity. Mm.
and we actually use at the rate many to one. And
Okay.
here we need to use something called one to many, and we use like this, and we have something called mapped by attribute.
Okay.
Okay, and we
This
need
is
to
for
use,
bidirectional.
yeah, we
Mm.
need to use this one as a reference
Okay.
over here. Okay, so mapped by attribute is used whenever restaurant is dependent on menus, and also restaurant menu is dependent on restaurant entity. In that specific case only we use mapped by. So mapped by is especially used when we are going to use bidirectional. That means restaurant is dependent on menu and menu is dependent on restaurant. In that case only we use mapped by attribute. Otherwise we don't have to use it. Okay.
Okay, so I got it.
Yeah. So that is one case. And now in our case, what we are actually doing, if you just go back over here, yeah. So here we have used cascade type, and then probably there is something called a fetch. So here I just want to make it as lazy. So if I get restaurant entity, do I have to fetch menus also? Is it a best practice? No, because let me tell you. So if I just go back to this, right? Here we are actually getting list of restaurants, but it is actually showing the restaurant information. Does it have menus also? No. When I actually click on this, it actually has to load the restaurant menus. And that's the info. So here it is actually passing the restaurant ID as a parameter, and based on that ID, it is fetching the menus of that specific restaurant. Can you see this? Okay. So like the same wise, here we need to get the restaurant entity, but we don't have to fetch menus. That is not a compulsory condition. We need to make it as fetch as lazy, so that whenever I'm getting restaurant entity as a response, I don't have to get this menus mandatorily. So that's the reason I have to make this as fetch type as lazy, so that menus will not be loaded. Menus will be loaded only when we call a getter for this menus. Okay, so that's the total idea. And here we need to use something called join column. Okay, so let's say there is something called @join column. Let's say in the restaurant, all right, in the restaurant. So let me join this restaurant ID over here. Let me show you the relationship, how it actually looks like. Okay, so I'm done with the relationships. Now I just wanted to go to this one and rename this to YAML. So everyone start using YAML file, because in properties we have to define that many number of times. So Spring application, it's a best practice to give the application name every time when we are working on. And I just wanted to call this as restaurant -service. And then we have something called JPA, and we do have something called a data source. We need to use both of the things. So data source, so what we can define the URL of the database. So, so how we can define the URL of the database? So JDBC :MySQL /localhost 3306, and then the database name. So I just wanted to use as restaurants batch 2. So you are batch 2 in real time, right? So that's the reason. So restaurants batch 2, and then probably we do have to use something called create database not exist equal to true. So we don't have to create database manually. So if this restaurants -batch 2 is not there, it will automatically create restaurants batch 2 database, okay, automatically with this flag. Okay, and then we do have something called a username. Username is root by default, and we need to give space after the colon, otherwise it will not be recognized. And we do have something called a password, and here we can actually give the database password. And here we have something called JPA, something called show SQL. I can actually use this as true. And we do have something called data source. So let me look into this. There's something called Hibernate JP auto configuration class. And here we do have something called Hibernate JP configuration, Hibernate properties, spring.jpa.hibernate DDL auto. Okay, so this is something called spring.jpa.hibernate. So I'll just go to this spring JPA. Spring JPA Hibernate. Inside this, we will have Hibernate. And then here we do have something called a DDL auto. Okay, so here we can actually make it as a create. So that's it. We are done with this. And now we'll just start our application now. Okay, very simple. So now we will see how these are actually getting generated. Can you say this? It is actually creating table restaurant menu types, restaurant menus batch 2, restaurants -batch 2. Okay, so now I'll just go to this and open my database. So here I actually open my database and see what are the relationships over here. Okay. Okay. So here we do have something called restaurants batch 2. And I think here we can have something called the restaurants. So here we can actually see the relationships. Here we do have restaurant ID, location, rating, restaurant image URL, and restaurant name. And if I just go back to the menu here, can you see this? You have a menu underscore ID, which is a primary key. And we have something called restaurant underscore ID, which is a foreign key from this. So let me do one simple thing, okay? So let me go to this one and instead of batch 2, because we have created a separate database, we don't have to mention this as batch 2. Okay. Let me recreate the tables again. So here, let me drop this up. And now let's run the application again. Yes. Now, if I just go back to this one, and here we do have something called refresh it. And here you'll see restaurants. That's good. Let me close all this. Okay. So this is what we do have inside our application like this over here. So if you just see, these are all the columns that are created. And here we have used, whenever you use join column on a specific type, so in this particular table only, this restaurant ID will get joined. It's a foreign key. So, okay. So here we do have a menu ID, item name, description, image URL, menu type, and price. But here what you see, right? So here, if you just go to this restaurant entity, we have taken that restaurant menu entity as a dependency over here. And here, I just wanted to maintain the restaurant ID as a foreign key inside the restaurant menu table. You can simply use at the rate join column of restaurant ID. You can actually give rest underscore ID. Okay, because join column will only join. So whenever we have used join column on a specific type, so this join column is used inside this class. So it will basically join this primary key as a foreign key value inside the restaurant menu entity. Okay, so so the name can be anything over here. So that's the reason you can see over here we have restaurant ID, location, rating, restaurant image, URL, restaurant name, and followed by we do have something called restaurant menus. And here we do have menu ID, which is a primary key, and restaurant underscore ID, which is a foreign key. Okay, so that's the total idea. And now what we can simply do, we can actually develop an API which will actually load some data into the databases. And here you can just see that there's something called menu entity, menu type. And just go over here and you can see restaurant ID and the menu type. We'll just load all the data right now. Okay, so what we can simply do, you can just go to this one and we can actually develop, create an API package, APIs. And here I just wanted to mention it as restaurant API. So right now I just wanted to load the data with some API itself. So I can just use request mapping. It's best practice to use restaurants. Even if you give forward slash or not, it will append. If you give forward slash, it will not append forward slash. If you don't give forward slash, it will append forward slash. So no worries if you add the restaurants or not in the forward slash quotation. Okay. So public void. So right now I just wanted to return a string, load data or load restaurants in database. Okay. And I just wanted to give this as get mapping. And here I just wanted to give it as /load. And I just wanted to, use something called, some um, um, file related utilities that we can actually use to perform database operations. Okay. But for you, you can actually go through this mechanism. Okay. So here, what I just wanted to use, I just wanted to use at the rate required args constructor, and I can actually use private object mapper, and I can actually use final resource loader, and that's it. And it will generate the objects for this because it is constructor injected, right? So probably we can do that. Okay. So now I just wanted to use a resource from Spring. And here I just wanted to use resource loader. There's something called get resource. And here I just wanted to use this one, class path colon. Is the one we do have, right? Restaurants.json. We do have inside this, right? So I'm just going to load all the restaurants in one go. And what we need to do, I'm just using try with resources feature, which was introduced in Java 7. So I don't have to close the streams manually. So I can actually use this one. And new input stream reader. And I can actually get resource dot get input stream. I'm going to read all the data. And this is a standard. We can use it, UTF-8. Okay. And it is going to throw some exceptions. So probably I will just use throws exception. Okay. And then probably what we can do, we can actually use file copy utils dot copy to string. And we can actually pass the reader. So what it will do, it will read the entire data of this JSON in the format of the string. And we are going to assign that string data. And after this, what we can use object mapper dot read value. And here we can actually give the data, comma. I'm just using the type reference of the list of restaurant entity. Okay. So that's it. And here I can just import that list. And here it is completely done. Now, right now we don't have any repository, right? So probably I just wanted to create one repository. Restaurant repository and extends CRUD repository. And here we can actually give restaurant entity, comma, the type of the primary key. It is integer. That's it. And what you can simply do, we can actually use that one as a dependency private. Okay. And here we can actually use that one So I can use save all, right? So here we are actually not returning the data, right? So the data will be list of restaurant entity. And we can actually pass this restaurant. Okay. And now what we can simply do, so we can actually close this try over here. So this is a try, right? So and return records infected. Okay. So now we will see whether we are going to load the data or not successfully. So let me run this application. This is just to load the data in real time. We do not write this kind of code because initially we want some data for the front end, right? So that's the reason I'm doing like that. Okay. But there is a better way to do this one as well using Flyway. I will tell you once the time comes. I'll just stop and rerun. Okay. And then probably we can open this localhost 8080 restaurants load. Super. That's a 500 status. Okay. So now we'll see what is happening behind the scenes. So now we'll just go to this. It is saying because this object mapper is null. So what is the meaning for that? So if you just go to this restaurant API, this object mapper is not final. So that's the reason it is not constructor injected. Sorry for that. And probably I'll just restart this application. If you don't mention it as final, you can actually use AutoWide, but I don't use AutoWide. I better go with constructor injection only. So for the final fields, using @required ask constructor, this will be constructor injected during the runtime. Okay, that's the total idea. And here, I just wanted to load the data again. It's 500 again. So let's check the data. So there is some related errors. So let me clear these logs and load the data again. So here, data too long for column description at row 1. So probably if you see the restaurant description over here, restaurant name, the menu item, can you see this? It is very large, right? So for some things, it is very large. Can you see this? The description is very long. So since it is having, so for this collection description, I can actually use, can you just go to this restaurant entity? Sorry for that. And here we do have something called a description. So if I just go to this menu entity and the description, here we have something called length. By default, it is 255. But right now, I just wanted to make it as 1000. Okay. And now what we will do, we'll just restart the application again, and we will just load the data. We need to increase the length of the, the description column. Otherwise, the description will not be stored. Okay. Good. And then probably what we can do, we can actually go and load this data. Super. The records are inserted. And now I'll just go to the database and I'll just refresh it. And here is the restaurant's data. Everything is loaded. So now we have all these restaurants to be, loaded into our Angular front-end application. And if you just see the menus, these are the menus. Okay. Can you see this? Everything is there. But why the menu image URL is not getting generated? Everything is good. Everything is good. But why it is not getting loaded properly, right? So am I setting this menu item image URL directly? So let me see it. So this menu item image URL is actually not matching with our restaurants JSON. So can you see this? This has to be like this. So I will just replace all the things with replace all. And now we'll just start our application. So here, can you see that it is create always until unless the records are loaded perfectly? We cannot use any other things, okay? So you can just keep it for a reference if you just wanted to load the data, but you can comment this code so that it will be good for everyone. So now what I will do, I will just go and load the data again. Good, super. And then we will just go to the tables. Okay, everything is good. Good, man. We are getting the image URL also. Okay, so that's the total idea. And these are, you can see there is a whole bunch of data. Okay, so many menus are there. Almost, I can say it as 290 menus across all the 30 restaurants. I think we do have 30 restaurants. 30 restaurants are there. Okay. So I just wanted to give this application to everyone so that you can actually go through this. I can actually give this zip file to everyone so that you can actually go through the relationships that I have used. And you can actually test it out a lot from your side as well. Okay, so I'll just go and open this in Explorer. And what I can simply do, show more options, zip it. And I will just go and open the Telegram channel. And I'll just copy this file straight over here. And this is the backend which I have generated at 10.2. Tomorrow we will load this data inside our front end using HTTP client. Okay, that's it. Now you can actually have a look into this. Sorry, what happened? It's not coming. Okay, I'll send it in chat also to everyone. But there is no option to send in chat. I think there's no option for me to send in chat. Probably, I think why the file is not sent. 1 second. And the table back in zip. I don't know what is the problem. You got it in the Telegram. Can you please check once and maybe it is not refreshing. Okay, fine. Okay, then. Okay, so probably I will just remove the latest one because it is duplicated. Yeah, I think probably you can take this one. Okay, so that's all for today. Please run that application inside yours, and then probably you can call the the load data, and probably it will be loading all the restaurants, which will be ready for your front-end application in Angular. Okay, fine. I'll meet you tomorrow at the same time. Bye and have a great day.